computer setup. If you need to interrupt at anything, like go ahead and unmute yourself to ask a question. But I'm looking forward to presenting to everybody today. And also thank you for coming. I'm really excited.
Good morning, Miss Foster. I just want to say hello.
Hey, Miss Cognell, how are you?
I'm good. I hope I don't make you nervous. I just wanted to peek in and see.
Oh no, I'm super excited to see you.
I love it.
I definitely was thinking of your class in Cormac while I was making this presentation, so I hope you find it helpful.
I sure will. I'm already excited about it.
Oh. All right, it's 10 o'clock, so I'm gonna definitely get started. Here's the link to my slides presentation again, but they're also in these orange boxes if you have to type it in. But hey everybody, my name is Mo Foster, and I am the music teacher at Northlake Elementary. I just, maybe like all of us, was going through my career, accommodating my students, my English language learners, my sped students, and living the normal music teacher life. And then COVID hit, and a bunch of my students remained online throughout the year. And so as I was delivering virtual lessons, it became more and more apparent to me that I needed to make sure my digital lessons accommodated my virtual learners. And the more that I try to try and improve my lessons to do that, the more I found that Google Workspace, formerly known as Google Suite, had a lot of tools and tips and tricks that I could use to do that. So even as our students are returning to the classroom, I'm hoping today that I give you a lot of tools that you can implement in your classroom through the technology that you have accessible to you and your students to help all learners understand your content and be engaged in your classroom. I'm going to briefly talk about the universal design for learning, which is kind of a concept that I found out during this journey. Kind of like in architecture, we have certain things that help the accessibility of a building, for example, like a curb cutout is designed for a wheelchair. However, not just people in wheelchairs use curb cutouts. If you need to push your stroller on the curb, or you want to ride your bike on the sidewalk, or whatever, all of like the curb cutout helps everybody. In education, we have the universal design for learning, which these modifications and accommodations may be originally designed for a specific learner, like a dyslexic learner or an English language learner, but we can make them accessible to all of our students while they're understanding the content and while they're engaging with content and while they're expressing their learning to us to help them be engaged and to help them understand. So in universal design for learning, there are basically three categories of thinking of this. Engagement refers to how you hook the students and how you get them interested in learning. Representation means how they are perceiving the information, how you are delivering content, how they're understanding it. And then action and expression is kind of how they navigate the content themselves and then how they express their learning to you. If you are interested in learning more about it, I think it's fascinating. There's a link at the bottom of this slide. So if you're following along on your own, I would click on that and go look at it more, but I didn't want to get too much into it today. But the tools that I'm going to show you kind of fall into these different categories. So let's get rolling. So for engagement, Google provides a lot of websites to hook your students. I have found 3 specifically that I use, and these are very cross-curricular. As I said, I'm a music teacher, and so a lot of my background, I want to hook my students into that. However, using these websites to engage with other subjects as well as teaching music has helped me, and I hope it helps you. Google Earth is the first one I use. If you go to earth.google.com or the link that I've provided, you can find a lot of different, you can engage with these 3-dimensional maps. So I like to take it, and if we're talking about a song from another country, or if we're talking about the setting of a book or something like that, I may start, okay, we're here in Garland, Texas, USA, but let's go explore and go find, where this is talking about. But there's no installation required for Google Earth that I found, and you can really engage in the map pretty closely. So if I wanted to zoom in, I could get really close to see like these exact mountains. Also, something that I can do in the in here on the sidebar is to capture the images and use them later in your presentation, so that you don't have to, oh, where did I put this mountain that I wanted to talk about? You have it saved for you. And then this button, Voyager, links you to some pre-made kind of quizzes or games and walkthrough lessons that Google has put together using their different images. Google Expeditions is kind of the combination of Google Earth and Google Arts and Culture to me. If you want to think of it as a virtual field trip, that's how I think about it. But you can either pick from these categories or search something that relates specifically to the lesson that you're looking at, and it'll give you a combination of 2D and 360 views in these areas. So for example, let's if you wanted to explore different work, you could go and find like, oh, I'm doing a unit on Frida Kahlo, so let's explore her art and go through that. So the final website I wanted to show you for engagement is Google Arts and Culture, which does have some of the same tips as Google Expeditions, but can also have games. They have a lot of museums that you can explore and kind of tour as though you're in Street View on Google Maps. They have interactive experiences for art and music and other cultures, but especially relating this within your content, there are a lot of tools here. And also kids love games. So there are more websites about engagement. Check those out, definitely. And of course, I wouldn't ever suggest, oh, here's a thing about this. Like, try and fit it to your curriculum, of course. The next thing I'm going to talk about is both representation and action. Google extensions have a lot of built-in extensions and a lot of built-in features to help your material be accessible to the student. Here are 8 different things that I found to make just the physical act of reading or interpreting and then expressing their learning to you easier for your student. I'll start with Mote, but also Mote is my struggle app because I have it work or not work sometimes. In theory, Mote is an addition, and all of these will link to the place that you can download them in the Google Chrome store. But for example, if I have a slide here's my Mote button right here. In theory, I should be able to click it and record myself talking so that I could read directions to the students or give them an oral example of something. And then it shows up as an audio button within your slide. However, I have not had a lot of success today when I was testing it. And it will do that. So the other thing is that you can also have an MP3 that you've pre-recorded through GarageBand or through Audacity or something like that. And you can add it by going to Insert, Audio, and then it'll find all the audio that you've uploaded to your Google Drive. That's the important thing. You can't upload it from your computer. You have to have it in your drive. So if I select that, and of course you can mess around with how the button looks, but then by pushing it and playing it, then your students are able to interact with the slide and listen to your audio example, directions, etc. I could also see this working really well if you have a digital book that you're reading to the kids. They could listen to you read the page if you had it in Google's slides. Google Translate is another app that I've used, and I use a lot on websites. So up here is your Chrome extension. Here are all the ones that I've downloaded. And so I find Google Translate, it'll pop up, and I could either type in a word, like if I don't know what, slowly, and I could pick which language out of the hundreds of languages that Google offers. I can also highlight a page or highlight a section and go back to Google Translate, and it'll translate the paragraph, like the highlighted text that I've done. So that especially for our EL students, and of course, Garland serves, I think the last thing I saw was over 80 different students who speak over 80 different languages. So I don't think it's reasonable to think that we'll be fluent in every single language that is spoken in our classroom unless we are in specifically a bilingual kind of class. If we're an ESL teacher, we may use that to meet the needs of those students. Lexa and Deca is not an app. However, it's a font that I was told about at, I think, Icon last year. But this font is specifically designed to help dyslexic students read more easily. But again, my students find that this font is very easy to read, so I use it in the majority of my stuff. So to install a new font in your Google Suite, you can just go up to the fonts and add more fonts. And then if you type in Lex, and they also have all these other different kind of spacings. So the next one is print friendly and PDF. For students who need, or this app was originally designed to, if I wanted to print out this page from Mercury, from the NASA website, but I don't want this GIF, I don't want all these images, I can go here and select which stuff I want to. So I would go to the extension, and it's going to pull up this PDF. So I can quickly remove anything by clicking on it that I don't want in my printer. But I saw this working really well for kids who had shortened assignments. Oops, I deleted the whole thing. So that I could create, a shorter passage for them. Or if I didn't need all that information in the first place, or if I wanted to divide it up, those are all situations where I could use that more easily than I could go and highlight the things I need and cut and paste and put it in another document and print that out. That makes it just way easier to implement that accommodation in my classroom without it being a huge time sink, so to speak. The next thing I wanted to add was this Google image search button. So especially if your kids are emergent tech literate students, or if they get distracted by all of the different tabs at the top, instead of opening opening a separate Google page, they can go down here to the corner and they can do their search. So you can search for, so they can have a web search, so they can find websites, they can find images to add to their documents. They could find it within their own Google Drive and stuff that's shared to them. So that's just another way to cut out extra steps for your younger students, especially, or your students who are new to technology. Students who need to see the font more clear, or maybe have like eyesight issues, or need the font enlarged. This they can zoom within Google Workspace by clicking up here, zooming up here, or you can even do Control and then the plus and minus on the keyboard, and that makes it really fast for them. Google Docs has added voice typing, so if you have students who have issues typing, you go up to Tools and you use voice typing, and if you click on this, in theory, it should allow you to write whatever you want to say, period. So that is, especially for your emergent readers and writers, that's a good way for them to share their stories and share their stuff while they are learning to do that. The last thing I'm going to add is Beeline Reader, which is something I found while researching for this presentation, and originally for dyslexic students, but also for kids who are practicing tracking. And I hope I don't show that I have like this interest in early elementary, because my son is going into kindergarten, so I'm sure I'm thinking about him a lot while I'm doing this. But if I open Beeline Reader, if I open, there it goes. There is the issue with Beeline Reader, and I haven't researched if our district pays for it, but they do offer a limited amount of times to use it per day. But so I can choose which colors I like, and it'll highlight the lines as it goes along, so it's easier to track the words on the page. And then also the clean mode will remove all that background noise, all the cute pictures that people put up, if that's distracting to the student. So, and all of these are either built in within Google, or they're available during the Chrome, in the Chrome store. So the other way that I wanted to kind of show representation was building a digital word wall. I live a lot in Google Slides. I found it really easy for my students to manipulate, especially if I embedded it in Canvas, which is what we were using. There are two different ways you can design this word wall. Either you make the word wall yourself and have the students access it, or you could kind of make it and not completely fill it out and have the kids fill it in. But so I kind of preloaded this. So this would be my digital word wall that I was going to implement in my Canvas page, for example. I want the kids to learn about dynamics. So I've uploaded these images, and I can kind of drag them around and place them where I want them to go. I added that background by going to inserting the background. I've inserted this as an image, and these were all just uploaded images that I copied. Now I get them all cute, exactly where I want them. And this will make, the goal of this is to make all of this vocabulary, or in my case, these symbols, very accessible to the students. So this is kind of good for everybody. Kids learning vocabulary, my ELs may recognize this format that you'll see from the strategy, like the sheltered instruction strategies. My visual kids have this visually around, like it kind of helps everybody to have access to this. So on each separate slide, I have added one of these vocabulary words, and I did the sheltered instruction kind of structure where you have the meaning, you have an image that represents that vocabulary word, you have an example, and because I'm in Google Slides, I can upload, or I can insert a YouTube video, but I could also insert a text box, I could insert images, etc., and then a non-example. So I want to link this vocabulary word to this slide so that when the kids click on this image, they can go to that. So all I do is go to slide 2, and then so on. So I would do that with all of these. Slide 2, slide 3, slide 4 through 7. Now, I don't want the kids to be able to click through the presentation like a normal presentation. So there are 2 things I'm going to do. I'm going to add kind of an overlay so that if they don't click on one of these things, they just click on my overlay. I'm going to copy my overlay over the top. I'm going to link it to the slide that it's on so that if they click on it, it just goes back to that same slide. Now, I don't want that to be the top, so I'm moving. So I'll show you the long way first, but I'm going to edit the order that it's on, or change the order that it's on. So order here, send backwards, and this is also I think control and down arrow on a PC. So I keep going until I have all of my vocabulary words up, but nothing else. And then of course I don't want the kids to see just this plain black rectangle, so I'm going to change the fill color to transparent. That means when the kids are interacting with this, if they click on that, it doesn't go anywhere. But if they click on the thing I want them to go to, it goes to the next presentation. The other thing that I'm going to do is hide all of these other slides. So if I push Control and say skip slide on all of them, even if they do like manipulate the slides with their arrow keys, it'll skip all of them. And if I'm in presentation mode and you have the kids clicking the arrows, it'll only go to the ones that I didn't skip. So that way they don't just mess around with this. They actually see that they're connecting this symbol or this word to this actual slide that has the meaning for it. I think that prevents the kids from just playing with it and flashing through it without understanding its meaning. All right, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is choice boards. I think we've heard the buzzword of choice words a lot, but I think being very intentional with what you put into your choice board is really important. So that's more of what I'm going to talk about, more than the actual construction of it. When we created choice boards a lot last year, I used it a lot for digital links. However, since the kids are going to be back, I could see using this in both in-person and technology links. But the important part is to look for a variety of different activities within your choice board. The choice board ideally shouldn't be, okay, solve this problem, or you could solve this problem the same way, or you could do this problem the same way, like use addition to solve all of these. The goal is to use a variety of different techniques for expression. For example, here is my math choice board. So the students can choose one of these 4 ways of solving this, this equation. So they can either solve it using the traditional 3 times 0.4, or they could write their own word problem for expression, for it. So each pineapple costs 40 cents in this magical grocery store where these things are so cheap. Sally decided to buy 3 of them. And so how much did it cost? And then the kids would solve it. So one is using just math. One is using expressive skills, drawing a model to show your solution. And then finally, record yourself. Especially on Flipgrid, that makes it super easy for us to see, but record yourself explaining how to solve this problem to a classmate. All of these are showing that the child knows how to solve the problem, but they're expressing to you in different ways that appeal to them or are easier for them to do for you. So some of the ways that UDL points out is you can, you can use text, like writing the word problem, speech, and I showed you some of the ways that the kids could use speech really easily within either speech to text or through Flipgrid or something like that. Drawing, illustrations, engaging them with like a comic book kind of format or storyboard, or filming themselves, or writing a song or a rap, or and then separately using dance and movement, especially to show their meaning for vocabulary words, using visual art, sculpting, that kind of thing. Those are all different ways that they could express themselves in a different media that would still show that they understand the concept. They're still achieving mastery of the teak that you're trying to teach them. Using physical manipulatives is really good for the students, especially since they've been away from it for so long with the digital learning and with the, especially our kids who are virtual learners last year. They may not have had access to that at home. Students also, especially, I guess, are the Zoomer generation, if that's what we're calling, they are used to being able to interact with each other digitally in short spurts. They are used to having TikTok and used to having access to Facebook and Instagram, and I don't know if they even use Facebook anymore, but Twitter, and they're able to explain these things very succinctly but very shortly in the 3-minute time span that they're allowed on TikTok, or the 400 characters they're allowed on Twitter. So giving them access to a lot of different abilities to do that and meeting them where they're at with that may help you as you push them further too. But giving them that option in the form of a choice board gives them also some voice and choice, and they are more willing to rise up to your to meet you as you are, as you request more and more from them, and as you push them more and more rigorously. If they also have this bundle of, well, I get to at least show you that I know this in the way that, like, I personally prefer, then they are more, then they're more willing to engage. And so here is a copy of a choice board that I made. This was for the digital, when the students were at home during the testing period. So the students had asynchronous days while certain grade levels were testing. In each of these categories, I had a different skill set. So I didn't tell the kids this, but all of the M's were singing and performance. The U's were composition and using music theory to compose something original. The S's were listening activities. The I was movement, and the C was playing games. And so the students were supposed to choose one from each thing. And of course, this was broad. This was at the end of the year, so I was kind of reviewing all of their teaks. However, if you find these elements to include in your class that fit your topic, even for a couple of teaks, you could make something that the kids would have a lot of choice for, but you would still have the satisfaction of they have shown mastery on the skill that I'm trying, like the skill and the content that I'm trying to teach them. So, and I wanted to give everybody kind of more time to talk about this and add questions, but also we're a little bit early, so I'm sorry about that, everybody. But yeah. So in conclusion, I think if you look at the UDL strategies and think about, if I can take this accommodation and offer it to all of my students without having me stay on my computer 6 extra hours after my kids go to bed or after dinner, then you will have a lot more mastery and you'll have a lot more engagement in your classroom. And here is your link for attendance. And thank you so much for coming.